Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom.
People in every part of the globe are perishing because their judgment is low. From children to teens to elderly folks, this epidemic is incredibly bold. Wisdom is needed to see through the fog. Without it, we'll stumble and cease to the law. You're jumping without something to break and fall if you choose to ignore wisdom's beckoning call. The only people who will lose the war are those who don't know who they're fighting for. You are the only one who can decide your fate. Don't waste your life when you can live inside of grace. If we turn to God and behold His shining face, we will gain traction to run in this human race.
Hey, what's going on? JC Johnson here. We are back for the love of wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. All right, just a quick recap. We were discussing pragmatism, and before the break, we just took a look at what that word pragmatism actually means, what it doesn't mean. And one thing that we looked at how, all right, this word pragmatism is related to the word practical. So pragmatism is a practical approach to problems and affairs. It's a reasonable and logical way of doing things or of thinking about problems that is based on dealing with specific situations instead of on ideas and theories. Okay, so that's from Webster's dictionary. And we were really focusing on the two words reasonable and logical, even though those words are synonyms, right? Reasonable and logical way of doing things. So this is not something that's unorthodox. It's not something that doesn't make any sense, right? We're talking about something that most people would consider normal, right? We're not talking about raking leaves, during a snowstorm or shoveling snow on a hot summer day in July. Right, we're talking about what's reasonable. We're talking about what makes sense to most people. And thinking about problems, it's a way of thinking about problems that is based on dealing with specific situations instead of on ideas and theories. All right, so when we talk about ideas and theories, right, you could look at a textbook. A textbook may say, you should do XYZ, right? You should eat lunch at 12 o'clock noon. That's the time that you should eat every day. And a person may look at that and say, well, because the textbook said that, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow this textbook to the T, literally. And they follow it blindly. But the problem with following things blindly is that you end up in situations where, just like in Europe with Adolf Hitler, just like in the Soviet Union with Stalin, any place where you have dictators, right? When you have people that are just following leaders blindly and they're not challenging what is being told to them, that's where you have problems. That's when you have social chaos. So it's important that we question anything that we hear, right? Anything that someone shares with us, because nobody has it all right. So the thing about pragmatism, it's about practicality. It's about, doing what is the best thing at the time, based on situations. It's, similar to, or it's really a branch of situation ethics. So we're going to take a look at, situation ethics and what that is in just a second. One other example when it comes to practicality, right? There's a difference between a practical gift and an extravagant gift. If you give somebody a practical gift, let's just say, you give someone a practical gift for their birthday or for Christmas or something. What is something practical? Something practical is something that they could use. It's something that they can easily, put to use at that moment. And it's something that they can appreciate, because, just like giving somebody a sweater when it's 30 below zero, a hat and gloves, a jacket. Those are some practical things that you can give to someone when it's really cold outside. Okay. Another thing, if somebody's toaster is broken, and they love eating toast. They eat toast every day. You give them a toaster so that they can continue to eat toast, because if they don't have their toaster or something is wrong with it, then they're probably not going to be satisfied. So you give them this practical gift of a toaster, they're going to appreciate it, because they say, wow, this is something that I can use. This is something that I actually like. I don't have to, pretend that I like it and then just go back and return it with my gift receipt, right? It's a practical gift that somebody will appreciate. However, not everybody likes practical gifts. Some people like more extravagant gifts. Like some people like expensive stuff like diamonds and shopping sprees and all expenses paid vacations. People have different preferences of what they're into, different stuff that they like. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having that preference, but just know that, not everybody sees it that way. Not everybody has those kind of ideas, right? Sometimes people are, more practical in how they give gifts, and it may or may not be appreciated. But I think what's important is, of course, knowing what kind of person you're dealing with, so that you can know whether or not they're going to be disappointed. But at the end of the day, if you're getting something for free, you should appreciate it, right? You would think. It's like it's more than what you would have had if that person didn't give it to you. So you can't complain when we get a gift, unless somebody gives us a bad gift, something destructive, something that's going to hurt us. In that case, tell them you can keep that. We don't need that, right? You can do something else with that. Give it to someone else, or better yet, don't give it to anyone else. Just take it back wherever you found it, and just leave it there. So we're gonna discuss a little bit more about this. I think that we need to do another part of this show, because there's so much information that we haven't covered yet. There's so much more that we still have to cover, and we don't have a lot of time to go over it all. But I think that this is a really important discussion. We're gonna pick up on that more when we come back. But you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, and we'll be right back after this. All right, what's going on? JC Johnson here, For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, and we are back. Thank you for tuning in. We are getting ready to conclude our conversation for today on this discussion of pragmatism. Just a quick reminder again, just in case you missed it, I just released a book on January 1st. It's called The 40-Day Fire, Burning Away All That Does Not Resemble Your Destiny, and it is available now on Amazon.com. You can get the ebook at a special price right now. Just for this week and next week, it's only 99 cents. So if you got an extra $1 to spare, not even $1, a penny less than $1, then go ahead and give it a try. Give it an honest try. If you like it, I would appreciate it if you leave a review. And also, another book that's out, Just Do It, a 10-day mental detox, and that's by Tiffany D. Johnson. That's an awesome book. It is a workbook that is designed to be used within a 10-day time period, although you could do it in one sitting or stretch it out even longer if you'd like. It's definitely a great read, something to help you get off to a good start in 2019. And let's take a look at, just before we conclude for today, let's take a look at a couple scriptures that will maybe bring some perspective or some balance to the discussion today, because when it comes to pragmatism, there are people that have a problem with it, right? Because they'll say that it goes against what the Bible teaches. Now, me personally, I try to be open-minded when it comes to, different philosophical topics, because I believe that there's good in everything. I don't like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So when it comes to making decisions that are practical, I think that's a great idea. I think that more people need to do that, especially people of faith. because it's easy when you have a certain spiritual belief. It's very easy to become narrow-minded and not pay attention to some things that are obvious. A great movie was Fiddler on the Roof, and that was a great movie because it challenged this idea of blindly following after traditions that don't make sense. So if somebody has a problem with something, maybe they have a problem with something that the Bible says. Now, I believe everything that the Bible says, right? But I only believe that because I studied it out for myself and I looked into it. I didn't blindly believe it or believe it because somebody told me to. I believed it because I believe it's true. I did the research. But there's a lot of people who haven't done the research. They say, I just believe this because my parents told me to, or I believe this just because it sounds good, right? But that's not enough to sustain you in the long run. That's not enough to sustain you when you're going through stuff that challenges your faith, right? So it's important to understand what you believe for yourself. What does the Bible have to say about this whole topic, though? That's what's important. Because, again, even though pragmatism has some very practical, just like as the word suggests, it has some practical uses, and it's something that we can really benefit from, it can also be a little bit misleading when it comes to objectivity. So we discussed this a little bit earlier, the difference between objectivity and subjectivity. And when it comes to objective truth, that is something that is not situational, as pragmatism would suggest, right? Right, wrong, good, and evil, those things are always what they are. Now, something may appear to one person to be evil when it's really not. For example, a dentist removing somebody's rotten tooth, because that tooth is going to infect their gums and go into their root canal, or their teeth cavities and all that. It's going to go into their mouth, and anything that's in your mouth is connected to your brain ultimately. So if people have issues with their teeth, with their gums and all that, it can have an adverse effect on the rest of their body. So that's something that they definitely have to pay attention to, right? So if the dentist is pulling out this person's tooth and the person is screaming in pain, saying, please stop, ow, stop that, you're hurting me, don't do that, right? Now, somebody who walks by the room, they might say, oh my goodness, that dentist is abusing the patient, I'm about to call the police, right? But what they may not understand is that dentist, and I'm sure he's not getting any pleasure out of that unless he's just that type of person, but he's probably not getting pleasure out of it. He's just saying, you know what? I know that this hurts, and like the saying goes, this hurts me more than it hurts you, but I have to do this because if I don't do this, this tooth is going to infect the rest of your body, and you're going to be in pain every time you chew. Why would you want that? We need to go ahead and remove this tooth. So in a situation like that, it's not so black and white. It's not so black and white, right? So that dentist is actually doing something good, even though someone else may perceive it to be evil. So again, that is why pragmatism, this whole idea of being practical, it does work, but there are times when it doesn't work, right? So what does the Bible say? Numbers 23:19. It says, God isn't a mere human. He can't lie. He isn't a human being. He doesn't change his mind. He speaks and then he acts. He makes a promise and then he keeps it, right? So anything that God says, it doesn't change. Nothing that God says is subjective. It is what it is, right? Everything that he says about himself and in his word, about us as humanity, all of that is absolute truth. Now, there are other things, though, in life that, of course, are subjective, and we have the right to decide whether it is good for us or not good for us. However, what we can't do is decide whether or not something is good or evil, because God has already decided that, right? And that's the most practical way that we can possibly look at things. We have to have someone who is the ultimate measure of what is good, what is evil, what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is false. So more on that next time.
Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want it, come and get some. Because we love wisdom. Because we love wisdom. Fear of God is the beginning